was enormous.
What is up, my wonderful people? My hair is finally finished. I only have this much hair left, so like a quarter of a bundle. And I did use my straight lace front closure, as you can see. So now I have like a beautiful asymmetrical bob, ombre, wild cherry, and 1B.
She would sit and hold the child in her arms. I mean, that was her main concern, was that Sunday
and as you can see, the way I glued my bundles, I can actually
treatments worked, and they were unsure what was wrong with her. Sunday's initial symptoms were high fever and vomiting, and that could be anything. That could be virus. That could be all kinds of problems.
I didn't know what the problem was. The doctors didn't know. They couldn't tell me what was wrong.
And I did spray my extensions with Cantu. Watch my previous 2 videos.
None of her siblings or her mother had gotten sick. 3 days after she was admitted to the hospital, Sunday's temperature soared, and her brain swelled uncontrollably, and she went into a coma and died.
When you have children, God gives them to you and He can take them. When Sunday died, I tried to remember that God gave her to us and now we want her back.
For Sunday's family, the promise of a peaceful life in America had turned into an unspeakable tragedy.
And let me tell you that my closure is by the company Outre. It's their Simply collection. And I have my 2 bundles, a 8 and a 10 inch by the I Wish Hair Company. I did a review on them previously on our channel. And I just want to say this is my first time actually doing a liquid cap quick weave, and just want to let y'all know that I'm definitely digging it. You know, I think I did a pretty alright job for my first time.
As the snow came down, you probably never saw snow before. And the whole scene to me was just one of the saddest things. After 2 years on the run, the family thought they had finally found a safe haven in America, but they were wrong. They had come here trying to have a better life for their daughter. They ended up burying her in a snowstorm in New Hampshire.
So, I really love it. I like the way it came out. I like the color blend. And I celebrate uniqueness always.
I think the police first suspect is always a family member.
And I did just do my makeup. And I used my awesome staple products, you know. Hard Candy Naturalized, Black Opal, my Focallure, Smoky Topaz, Lip Crayon, and my Ruby Kisses Black Sism, which is the black shade I'm wearing now.
Was it possible one of the neighbors, perhaps resentful over the influx of refugees into the neighborhood, was responsible?
And all the hair is very soft.
Our apartment complex was another family from Sudan. Before my child got sick, so did theirs, but he recovered. He didn't die.
So, I just want you guys to see how it looks.
New Hampshire officials couldn't determine how Sunday died, and this raised alarms. One of their initial concerns was to make sure there was not the importation into the U.S. of some exotic disease that could have been transmitted by Sunday or her family into the U.S. All members of the family were thoroughly tested. Everyone was perfectly healthy. But then results came back from an extensive test on Sunday's blood. Analysts were shocked by what they found. Her blood contained unusually large amounts of lead, 392 micrograms per deciliter, 40 times the lethal level for a child.
High level for us might be 50 or 60. I think the may have even had a 70 or an 80 over the years that I've done inspections, but a 392 is just absolutely off the charts for us.
But I just wanted to
Lead
show you
kills
guys.
by attaching itself to red blood cells. This takes oxygen out of the blood and starves the brain. Sunday's official
You see the
cause of
shine.
death was lead poisoning.
And even after
The first
bleaching,
such
dyeing
case in
my
the US in
I
more
wish
than a
hair
decade.
extensions,
The family seems to be
they
having
still
trouble
are very
grasping
soft and
one of them said to me,
curlable,
we don't have
as you
lead
can
in
see.
different
Hold on, I
African
want to
lead
show you.
bullets you're getting shot at. Investigators now checked the rest of the family to see if they'd also been exposed to lead. The test showed they were all within normal levels.
There was something unique to Sunday. It wasn't something that they had commonly all been exposed to that created this horrific problem for all
Look
the
at that
family.
pretty curl.
How could a killer dose of lead have gotten into Sunday's system while the rest of the family was unaffected?
And you can
Their
see
apartment building was locked
the
down
color
in a
underneath.
search for answers. Paint, the most common source of lead poisoning, was tested with a portable X-ray analyzer.
It uses a radiation source to basically.
And I love my hair. And I did talk to my boyfriend today, and we decided we're gonna do good night
Minor
phone
amounts of
calls
lead
and
were
text
found in the
messages
paint,
now.
not
So
unusual
I'm
in
a
an
happy
old building,
girl.
and not nearly enough to kill someone. Now investigators
Well,
moved
you
on to the water,
guys,
the air, the cooking
I had told
utensils,
y'all that
and
I'm gonna be
toys.
doing, I'm
Everything
gonna
in
be
the
vlogging
apartment was
from
tested.
a new
Select the area of
location.
the
So
home and mark off a square
get
foot and
ready.
actually
I'm
wipe it
soon
with
gonna be
a
taking y'all
sterile
on
wipe
an
and collect the dust and put it in
adventure.
a sterile container and that's analyzed to see
But I
what the
hope
dust
that you
level is.
like
The contents of the
my
wipes were dissolved in hydrochloric
eye
acid.
color.
In a process
And I
called
used some
atomic
Cantu
absorption,
thermal
the
protecting
solution was
spray.
exposed to
It has a
temperatures
beautiful
of more
light
than
hold.
3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. He runs a sample of the flame,
And I
much
think
like
I'm
the
gonna give
70s
myself
torture.
some nice body
And the instrument
curls.
is set up to see only lead. No abnormal levels were found. Nothing in the building could produce a dose of lead large enough to kill.
And I walked back to the office and said, I don't think it's the house, there's something else going on.
Extensive testing provided no clues as to how little Sunday Abeck was exposed to a lethal dose of lead.
Lead has been known as a hazard for 2,000 years. Lead was one of the first occupational diseases identified by the Romans and the Greeks many, many years ago. So
Oh,
it's
and look at
not a
how
new,
pretty the
issue.
highlight is.
While investigators couldn't rule
Do you
out
guys see
an
that?
intentional poisoning by someone in the U.S., they had to consider the possibility that Sunday was poisoned before she got to America. Perhaps in the refugee camp.
They even brought in the health department in Egypt, and they sampled the formula that the little children were given. Because if something was contaminated in the formula, that could affect thousands of kids.
Food, air, water, and soil in the camp were tested. Everything was negative. It seemed the question of how Sunday had been killed might never be answered.
There was this mystery. What had happened to her and why?
Investigators now turn back to Sunday herself. Since lead is a poison, the body goes to great lengths to expel it. Deposits build up in the nails and hair. The average person's hair grows about a half-inch per month. Sunday's hair was an inch long and provided a wealth of information.
She had spent a month in the United States, and before that she had been in Egypt. So, by taking her hair and looking at it specifically for lead content, and dividing it in half so that we had the half inch that grew in the United States and the half inch that grew before that, we were able to make a comparison and time her exposure.
The hair was bombarded with radioactive neutrons. This caused different elements in the sample to react in unique ways. The tip of Sunday's hair had trace amounts of lead, but the base, the part closest to the scalp, showed massive amounts.
What that tells me is, in the United States, she got exposed to a pretty significant amount of lead, and that her level before that wasn't abnormal. So her exposure was in this country, it wasn't back in Egypt.
Investigators must have overlooked something, but they didn't know what.
They went full circle. They went back to Manchester and started saying, what did we miss?
They questioned Sunday's mother again and were told something they had not heard before. Sunday spent a lot of time on the front porch of their apartment building.
I knew always that the cause of Sunday's sickness had something to do with the apartment.
They were able to ascertain that the child did in fact spend time playing on the porch, and the mother had seen the child pick at the paint on the porch.
The porch of the apartment was in bad shape. The paint was old and peeling. Suddenly, investigators thought they'd solved the mystery. It looked to be a phenomenon called pica. The word comes from the Latin name for magpie, a bird that eats almost anything.
Pica is a condition particularly of children, but not always of children. It's sort of a craving for food items to eat. Lead paint often tastes sweet. So here's a little malnourished girl who's never had enough food, and it became pretty clear she's probably picking up chips of paint and sucking on them or chewing on them.
Samples of paint from the porch showed levels of lead 37 times the legal limit. To see if it was this paint that killed Sunday, investigators brought in the Centers for Disease Control. The samples were dissolved in nitric acid and then heated, so the isotopes or chemical signature of the lead would be exposed.
We can run the sample of analysis for the child's blood and compare that to the different potential sources that she was exposed to, and then plot that out, and we can either identify or exclude various sources.
The isotopes from the paint on the porch and from Sunday's blood were identical. This test left no doubt. Sunday Abeck got a lethal dose of lead by eating the paint on the front porch of her apartment building. But the case was far from over. Investigators soon found evidence that someone knew Sunday was in danger all along and mounted an elaborate cover-up to keep that knowledge from her family and police. A year-long forensic investigation proved without a doubt what killed little Sunday Abeck.
We concluded that lead paint and dust in the environment of her apartment in Manchester was the principal source of her lead poisoning.
Property records showed the rental agent for the apartment building, James Annixdeen, had been informed that his building did not meet current standards for lead safety. By law, he had to let his tenants know this.
Landlords and property managers who lease buildings constructed prior to 1977, they are required to provide general lead paint warning notices.
To prove that they had been informed, tenants must sign these disclosure documents. The landlord provided photocopies of these documents and signed an affidavit saying they were legitimate. Investigators weren't so sure.
The tenants advised us that they had not signed those documents. We looked at the signatures on those documents, and we're actually looking at them to see if they were forged.
Document experts compared signatures from the documents to known signatures of the tenants. The signatures were exact matches.
He was too good at it, actually, because the signatures were too much alike. If he had buried them in some way, it would have been a much more difficult case to resolve.
The signatures weren't forgeries. They were duplicates of signatures from other documents the tenants had signed.
The signatures are what we determined to be a layover. They were an exact replica of an authentic signature, which indicates to us that it was placed there by some other means and was fraudulent.
One of these signatures stood out. It was from Sunday's mother, Mary Alaroot. In the document provided by the landlord, her name was spelled out, but at the time, Mary could barely write English.
She was still signing her name with an X, though she was undergoing training
by a church-sponsored teacher to learn how to read and write and speak the
My
English
flat
language.
iron shut off, but it's still hot enough to curl my hair.
Handwriting forensic examiners that this was
Wow, right?
her signature. Investigators raided the landlord's office. In the bottom of a trash can, they found more than 60 torn scraps of paper.
The Secret Service reconstructed that document for us, finding all but one of the 60-something pieces.
When the pieces were reassembled, investigators
And I have
found the
my
original
flat iron on
forgery of Mary
370
signature,
degrees.
identical
It's a
to the
Remington
one
flat iron.
on the
It's
lead
one
disclosure
inch.
He forged the signature of Sunday Abeck's mother on a lead paint disclosure form. He copied it and produced copies to the Environmental Protection Agency and the grand jury.
The landlord's fingerprints were on the document. Mary Allerud's were not.
It's very unlikely.
And this is the color I used to dye my hair.
with that particular document.
Investigators say that when Annexstein found out about Sunday's death, he knew he was potentially liable. So he took his tenants' signatures, copied them from other documents, and then placed them back onto the lead disclosure agreements.
And again, the products I used to do my hair was
His biggest mistake
this
was forging the signature of Sunday's mother. Apparently, he
30
was
second
unaware how
Super
she
Bond
signed
glue,
her name. So
hair
it was
glue
clear this was
by
not her
Salon Pro.
signature.
If I were to grade his attempts here at forgery, he'd probably be about a D.
When faced with the evidence, James Annexstein
And
pleaded guilty to obstruction of
weave
justice
molding
and
gel
failing to notify his tenants
by
that they were
Salon
living
Pro
in unsafe
30
conditions.
second, which took forever to dry.
In this arena, it's all about money. You wanna save
And then I
money,
also
what
have
costs, I think the cost of this
Salon
is a lot.
Pro 30 second Moroccan
Repainting
argan
the
oil
porch would have cost
weave
just a
Wonder
few
Wrap gel.
$100 and would have saved Sunday's life. Her family won a $700,000 civil award against Annexstein and his real estate company. He was sentenced to 15 months in prison and fined $40,000. His was the first ever conviction in the U.S. for failure to notify about the presence of lead.
He dug himself a real deep hole and got hit a big penalty. And I think EPA hoped that sent an alarm across the country so other landlords don't take part in similar things.
I was happy he got punished. He was lying. I never signed those papers. He lied, and it was right that he was punished.
Sunday's family has relocated to Tennessee. They're still adjusting to life in America and the aftermath of Sunday's death. Meanwhile, Sunday lies in an unmarked grave in a New Hampshire cemetery, hundreds of miles from her family, thousands of miles from home. Her death could easily have been avoided, but thanks to the forensic analysis, it's far less likely another family will suffer the same tragedy.
Her death couldn't have been solved without forensics. The work in the lab is what solved this case. And it happened at the federal, state, and local.
I hope you guys like my video. I'm going to finish curling the back of my hair, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.